Since the 1970s, the rise of tough love rehabilitation movements has led to the creation of over 200 facilities worldwide, housing thousands of children. These institutions operate without government oversight, and over 40 deaths have been reported, with countless other young lives negatively impacted. In the dead of night, two men forcibly drag Danny out of his bed, handcuffing him. His parents wait outside, but when Danny pleads for their help, they coldly tell him it's for his own good. The next day, Sophie visits a store to return a damaged product, causing a scene by throwing things around. The store employee, Ben, grabs her and pretends to scold her, revealing they're a couple, and she was just pranking him. Meanwhile, at a club, Jack is recklessly consuming drugs, oblivious to his surroundings until he notices he's bleeding. When Sophie returns home, she finds her mother, Marianne, and stepfather, Carl, entertaining influential guests. Sophie disrupts the gathering, accusing all politicians of being corrupt, and pulls out a joint. Carl admits to searching her room, and when Sophie tries to protest, Marianne drags her away while Carl ominously announces she's out of strikes. Later, Sophie and Ben attend a party, ignoring a "don't go past this point" sign to sneak upstairs. Sophie impulsively proposes marriage so she can escape her home, but Ben laughs it off, blaming her wild suggestion on the weed since they're not even 18 yet. Suddenly, men burst into the room, announcing they have permission from Sophie's parents to take her away. Ben is restrained in another room while Sophie fights back, but the men inject her with a sedative to subdue her. Afterward, Ben confronts Sophie's parents, demanding to know what's going on. Carl coldly informs him that Sophie is being sent away for a year to a place where no one can find her. Marianne insists it's for Sophie's own good, but Ben sees her hesitation. The next morning, Sophie wakes up on a boat with Danny and Jack. As Jack vomits overboard, Sophie's questions are met with silence until Danny reveals they're being taken to Fiji. Upon arriving on the island, the teens are marched through the woods to a behavioral rehabilitation boot camp. They are greeted by Logan, the camp's head of security, who fits them with ankle sensors that will alert the camp if they try to leave. Escape by sea is impossible due to the distance and the presence of sharks. Their personal belongings are confiscated, and the trio is chained to concrete blocks on the shore, enduring freezing waves throughout the night. Holding hands for support, they survive the brutal initiation. The following morning, Logan's team releases them, and Arthur, the camp's founder, delivers a cliched motivational speech, explaining the concrete is payback for the trouble the teens have caused their parents. Jack notices pit cells in the ground and begins to protest, only to be silenced by the guards. As they enter the main camp, Sophie and Danny see other teens hard at work. A coordinator explains the camp's hierarchy, where everyone starts as a black shirt, with the opportunity to progress to yellow and eventually white, which is the only way to earn freedom. Sophie receives her uniform, and Trina, another camper, explains the harsh realities of camp life. During Sophie's invasive body search, Ben continues his mission to find her, confronting Marianne again. This time, feeling guilty, she reveals Sophie's location, Serenity Boot Camp in the South Pacific. As Sophie adapts to the camp's grueling schedule of constant work and study, she endures lousy meals, cold showers, and bugs crawling at her feet. White shirts, who are nearing release, are exempt from work and oversee the other teens, while rule breakers are sent to the pit cells. One day, the campers gather in a tent for a disturbing ritual. Trina is put in the middle of the circle, and Arthur instructs everyone to clap for her. He then has her peers verbally attack her, recounting her rebellious behavior. The insults escalate until Trina breaks down, confessing that she had rebelled against her parents' strict religious upbringing, seeking attention through reckless behavior. Tearfully, she apologizes, but the psychological damage is evident. This shocking and degrading process reveals the camp's twisted methods. The other teenagers surround Trina, offering words of love and support, but Sophie remains skeptical of their sincerity. Later that night, Sophie overhears Trina praying. Early the next morning, Arthur takes the group to the beach for meditation, delivering more motivational speeches, as if the camp were some kind of mental sanctuary. Meanwhile, Ben begins making more reckless decisions back home. A few days later, the camp serves chicken for dinner, a rare treat. Trina sneaks away with a stolen piece to eat in secret, but Logan catches her. He begins behaving inappropriately, mentioning that he almost promoted her to a yellow shirt, but now her actions may keep her in black forever. As a heavy storm rolls in, the camp's tents begin to fall apart, forcing the campers to seek shelter. Rhonda suggests helping the campers, but Arthur insists they should fend for themselves. When the girls' tent flies away, Sophie rushes back to rescue a shivering Trina. The storm knocks out the camp's power, and the next day, Trina is put in charge of fixing the damaged tents. Eager to exert her new power, she begins bossing everyone around. Sophie slips in the mud and wants to rest, but Trina pushes her to keep working. When Sophie refuses, Trina gives the other girls permission to attack her. They drag Sophie through the mud by her hair, kicking and insulting her while calling her a liar. Arthur watches from a distance, approving of the proper incentive at work. Later, Arthur has a private conversation with Sophie, trying to seem kind by offering her cookies and milk. He tries to provoke her by bringing up her strained relationship with her parents, but Sophie doesn't take the bait and angrily throws the cookie away. Meanwhile, Ben arrives at the camp. After a medical examination, he's assigned to the boys' tent, where Jack immediately starts taunting him. However, before things escalate, they're called to dinner. At dinner, Ben sits across from Sophie, who is shocked to see him. She walks away from the table, and Ben follows her. While pretending to wash dishes, Ben explains that he deliberately got himself sent to the camp by faking his behavior. His injections were saline, and he even staged a situation where someone pointed a gun at him to convince his parents he needed help. Ben promises Sophie they'll escape and steals a fork from the kitchen. The next day, Logan takes the boys on a grueling run around the island, followed by a swim. The waves are strong and Danny, who isn't a strong swimmer, barely survives. Later, Arthur announces that Trina has been promoted to a yellow shirt, giving her more authority in the camp. Ben hides in the bathroom, trying to disable his ankle sensor with the stolen fork, but a coordinator interrupts him before he can finish. A month passes since Sophie's arrival, and it's now her turn to be in the center of the circle during one of the camp's humiliating rituals. Since she refuses to speak, the other teens are called in to throw her around and hurl insults, calling her a liar. This abuse triggers memories of her parents physically pushing her around after she crashed their party. Eventually, Sophie breaks down, revealing a dark secret. During that party, she lied and claimed that Carl, her stepfather, came to her room every night. In tears, Sophie apologizes for the lie. Later, Sophie spots Trina sneaking away with Logan, but before she can intervene, Ben grabs her and takes her into the bushes to discuss their escape plan. However, Sophie has been brainwashed by the camp's manipulative tactics. She tells Ben that they deserve to be there because of their bad behavior and leaves him behind. The following day, Rhonda instructs the teens to write letters pretending to be their parents, saying things they wish they would hear. Meanwhile, the boys play sports on the beach, and during the game, Ben accidentally crosses the camp's perimeter, activating the sensors. The coordinators quickly turn them off, but Ben gains valuable insight into how they operate. During the next play, Ben is knocked down aggressively, and in retaliation, he knees another boy in the groin. That evening, Arthur announces that a boy who has been at the camp for 2 years will finally be leaving. Arthur praises the boy leaving the camp, once one of the worst cases, and plans to take him to his seminar in Los Angeles as a success story. Upon hearing that this boy spent 2 years at the camp, Sophie changes her mind and decides to go along with Ben's escape plan while Arthur is away. Later, Rhonda reads the letters the campers wrote as their parents. When she reaches Sophie's letter, written as her dead father, she finds it sweet, but Arthur quickly dismisses it as an attempt to manipulate him. The next day, Ben continues messing with his ankle sensor and finally finds a way to control it. Late at night, after Arthur leaves for Los Angeles, Ben sneaks into the girls' tent and convinces Sophie to follow him. They run to the camp's perimeter, where Ben turns off Sophie's sensor, allowing them to cross undetected. They sneak into Arthur's office, passing a drunken, sleeping Rhonda, to retrieve their personal belongings. On their way out, Sophie accidentally kicks a bottle, but Rhonda is too drunk to notice. The pair then head through the woods to the beach and get into a boat to escape. Meanwhile, Arthur's seminar in Los Angeles is a carefully curated promotion of the camp, showing only the peaceful, serene parts, like meditation and gardening. Ben's parents are in attendance, blaming Sophie for their son's sudden change in behavior. Growing suspicious, Arthur sends a warning text to Logan. Back on the island, Sophie and Ben struggle with the boat as it can't stay afloat in the rough waters. Their boat overturns, forcing them to swim to a nearby island resort where Ben had prearranged their escape plan, including money and documents. For a few hours, they enjoy their freedom and become intimate, but their happiness is short-lived when Logan and his men capture them, dragging them back to the camp. Upon their return, Sophie and Ben are thrown into pit cells. Arthur punishes the entire camp, declaring that no one will have breakfast or free time for the next 3 months to teach them the consequences of one person's actions affecting the group. During a brutal circle ritual, it's Danny's turn, but he refuses to break. Even when beaten with canes, he stands his ground, claiming his parents sent him to the camp after he made a joke about murders online. Danny accuses Arthur of pretending to help the kids, which earns him a punch from Arthur. Days pass with Ben and Sophie still locked in their pit cells, enduring scorching sun and storms that flood their cells. After 2 weeks, they are finally released. In private, Arthur blames Ben for ruining Sophie's rehabilitation and warns that Ben will be kicked out in 3 days. Until then, Ben must behave, or Arthur will make Sophie's life miserable. Later, while working, Ben tries to be cold to Sophie, but she insists on talking until Ben reveals Arthur's threat. That night, Sophie witnesses Trina crying in the showers after Logan forces himself on her. Sophie follows Trina, and after some reluctance, Trina confesses what happened. Sophie comforts her the best she can. The next day, Logan forces the boys to swim in even harsher waves. Danny struggles and clings to a buoy, calling for help, but Logan ignores him. As the other boys return, Logan tells Danny he must swim back on his own. Ben tries to intervene, but Logan holds him back. A large wave knocks Danny off the buoy, and he goes under. In desperation, Ben breaks free, swims out, and retrieves Danny's body, but it's too late. Danny is dead. Ben confronts Logan, accusing him of causing Danny's death. Logan, however, lies, claiming Danny died while trying to escape. When Arthur hears of the incident, he scolds Logan for the legal trouble the camp will now face and threatens to expose Logan's criminal past if things go south. As campers witness Danny's body being taken away, that night, Arthur calls Logan into the circle, claiming the law applies to everyone. The other teens hesitate, but Trina stands up, accusing Logan of making false promises to many girls in exchange for promotions. Several girls join in, sharing their experiences of Logan's abuse. Teens furiously beat Logan, but Sophie stops them, reminding them that violence proves they belong in the camp. Arthur seizes the moment, claiming the teens are abandoned by their parents, but Ben counters by revealing that Arthur's former camp in New Mexico saw the deaths of multiple teens. He moved the camp to a remote island to evade the law. Ben's speech ignites a rebellion. The teens start destroying the camp, lighting tents and buildings on fire. Logan tries to escape in a car, but the group throws objects at him, causing him to crash into a burning building. The flames trigger an explosion, killing him. Meanwhile, Ben and Sophie confront Arthur in the main building, where Arthur pulls a gun. As he monologues, Jack sneaks up behind him and begins beating him. Jack nearly stabs Arthur in rage, but Ben stops him. Arthur tries to fire his gun, but Rhonda had removed the bullets. The teens throw Arthur into a pit to be found by the police later. As the teens run across the island, celebrating their newfound freedom, the camp sensors blare, signaling the collapse of Arthur's twisted empire. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.